Hello, my name is Corey Bender. I'm a certified industrial hygienist, and I wanted to talk about the silicosis epidemic that seems to be making a lot of news. The snowball is getting bigger day after day. Started maybe in Australia and hit big in California. And I wanted to go through this idea here of, in the broad picture, I think industrial hygiene is missing from the landscape. And I think industrial hygiene and industrial hygienists need to play a bigger role in this conversation. So I created this painting here to kind of highlight this is my trying to show that there are pockets of information, there are things that are being emphasized and stressed, but the big picture is still hidden to the conversation that's going on here. There's some things that are stressed, like engineered stone, and the fact that it has more silica generally than natural stone, and the idea that it's in a recent lawsuit that it's a defective product. There are victims of silicosis that are suing the makers of the engineered stone, and there are people saying that it is not, you cannot work on it safely at all. And I think that is something that industrial hygienists needs to kind of raise their hand and say, well, okay, hold on here. I don't think that's necessarily the case. So amongst this darkness, this cloud, we have some pockets of light, very important. That awareness is being generated, although part of the problem is we aren't able to adequately count or account for who has silicosis for a variety of reasons that I'll touch on. But the idea here is that we industrial hygienists, we need to bring in the light. We need to open it up and give a bigger picture of how someone could develop silicosis working on engineered stone or natural stone, and what protections can be put in place, what can be done. So this is my kind of graphical artistic representation of what I believe is the current situation. Now, playing off of this, one of the main things I want to stress is accuracy. And I believe that I've done some research. This Silica Health Advisory that came out from the Texas Department of State Health Services back in 2019 identifies a cluster of silicosis among workers of a particular workplace. And I'll quote here occupational silica dust exposures that occurred during the manufacture, finishing, and installation of stone countertops. Now, I believe, and I think I'll show is very apparent that this particular location was not your traditional stone countertop fabricator. And of course, there are some similarities, but I have been trying to notify the DSHS that this is inaccurate and I would like it changed. And I will show you here the email that I sent Dr. Ketki Patel at the DSHS explaining what I believe is the inaccuracy. So I'm going to go through this and show you that I believe the employer of this silicosis cluster is Laboratory Tops Incorporated, and their NICS code is under institutional furniture manufacturing. This is not the same NICS code that your regular stone countertop manufacturer is in, which is 327991 Cut Stone and Stone Product Manufacturing. And I believe it's important that this is corrected. I've tried multiple times, but under the guise that they cannot reveal who the employer was for legal reasons, they seem like they don't want to address this misleading statement. And I think it's important that as I said, the snowball keeps going here with engineered stone kind of at the front and center. Here we have a legitimate silicosis cluster, but this is not your stone countertop shop, they were actually making resin-based laboratory desktops. So more of like a rubber, right? Hard rubber, um, not natural stone, not engineered stone. And so I'm going to go through and how I came to that conclusion and the important things about it. So um, let's talk about here the timeline. And we'll start here in 2014, where you had the first Texas silicosis case from engineered stone. And I'm going to tape a video at a different time, kind of going through. I did a little investigation with that as well. And I'm going to insert that here in the video. But what we're going to pick up off is, and one of my major sources is going to be this paper here that was published in 2021, An Outbreak of Work-Related Asthma and Silicosis at a U.S. Countertop Manufacturing Fabrication Facility. This was conducted by the feds, and one of the contributing authors here is a doctor from Concentra, which I'll talk about briefly. National Medical Services, Surveillance Services, Concentra. But you see here, this is federal OSHA staff. And this, while they cannot give the name of the establishment, I will briefly but deliberately go through here and explain why this is linked to the Texas advisory that I mentioned. Okay, so again, this is an article published in, let's see here, the American Journal of Industrial Medicine, looks like in 2022. All right, so they're going to talk about an outbreak of work-related asthma and silicosis at a facility that manufactures and fabricates chemical-resistant countertops comprised of sand, epoxy resin, and phthalic anhydride. So while I would agree that this is similar to working on engineered stone or natural stone, this is not the same industry. And this is a engineered stone, say on steroids here, as you have some key ingredients besides silica. And here we have, now this article is generally about the asthma, but it does talk about the silicosis in quite a bit of detail. And the first thing we see here is of these 12 workers that were flagged, 4 of them were diagnosed with silicosis with a CT, a chest scan. Now that number 4 matches with the Texas Health Advisory, which I believe states that there were 4, but I could be wrong. MMWR. So the MMWR report that includes this Texas cluster yes, here we have here. So 12 cases were identified, and 4 of the 12 workers had silicosis diagnosis confirmed by chest CT scan. So again, without naming names, this matches up perfectly here. But here again, among workers at an engineered stone countertop manufacturing fabrication facility. And I think this is inaccurate. So, and of course, when one source is inaccurate, this is just parroting the Texas people. And so I think this is inaccurate as well. But let's continue. So we have here the cluster of, again, this is in Texas. Again, this article is more about the asthma, but it briefly talks about the silicosis. Now, what really pins this down is this paper explains that an OSHA inspection was initiated in the plant in September of 2016. So here we have the OSHA complaint inspection since September 2016. Now, what happened then is the laboratory tops employees, a certain amount of them went to the employee health clinic for asthma-like symptoms. And this is, I think it's clear in the article that they went to Concentra and they were evaluated for asthma. Now, OSHA conducted sampling. This is a lot of good information here about the OSHA sampling on 4 different dates in December and January, including silica sampling, which was in the fabrication department. Now, in the casting department, they did sample for the uh, phthalic anhydride for the asthma-related chemicals. So OSHA sampled quite a bit, and I'll show you that. And they did convenient sampling of workers. They did a questionnaire. They did some chi-square or Fisher's tests to determine how the variables affected or factored into the results. Now, here they mention that it wasn't until 2018-2019 that the new OSHA silica standard came into place, and at that time, the employer offered medical surveillance to the silica exposed workers. And here we have workers whose beat reads showed a small passive profusion of 1/0 or greater were referred to a pulmonologist for additional evaluation, including the CT scan. Now this is very interesting because here we have in 2018-2019 the employees getting the medical surveillance for silica. Well, what happened in the meantime? Well, I'll show you this. The OSHA inspection, they issued citations for overexposures. And I believe it was based on the silica, but it could have been based on the PA as well. And one of them was willful when it was issued, and that later got changed. But here we have this gap, which I find interesting, where you had known silica exposure, you even had exceedance of the OSHA standard. Why didn't these employees get medical surveillance? Why did the employer, and who knows who recommended what? Who knows if Concentra recommended exams and the employer turned it down? But this is, I think, one big red flag here of why these employees, even though there was no standard at that time that said they needed medical surveillance, it would seem like the right thing to do, especially after they found work-related silica or asthma from this investigation. So here we find that once they went to Concentra and the 4 cases were found in March of that year, DSHS became aware of it and they put out the Silica Health Advisory. And we're going to talk about the OSHA investigation and the sampling that they found next.